I don't often end up with large flat plains in my zoos. I guess I tend to avoid them, because emptiness in Planet Zoo will often not look very good, even when it's left empty on purpose. But recently I had to deal with a landscape like this in a zoo that is otherwise quite the opposite. I needed a herd of bison to roam a large open field, so you got something to watch from this western train ride. So I had to figure out how to make this empty grassland feel like the right kind of empty. A task that could easily end up taking a lot of time if you don't deal with it the right way. Therefore I want to show you the techniques I used to get this result, even though it's still a bit work in progress. Let me demonstrate in a diorama map. Keep in mind, what I show today works the best on completely flat terrain. Let us begin with a simple example where we just used one type of grass, but this grass will be of various sizes. I start out in a way I feel like have been covered in tutorial videos by other creators before. You start by making a random little patch of grass. I first use a lot of the large buffalo grass, then some medium pieces and a few smaller ones, all placed quite randomly. You might want to slightly lower some of them a bit more into the ground for more variation. We can now turn this into a group and then easily cover a large area like this. It is a good idea to spin the group once or twice before every placement to make it all appear more random. You might also want to duplicate a group and save somewhere else in your map for later use. If you're going to fill out like a huge area, you can also turn your smaller groups into larger ones along the way to make the process go faster. And you can also play around with different height levels for your groups of grass. What I do next I believe stands out a bit more from what I've seen other creators do. Let me know if I'm wrong. I used these two tools, the Bulldozer tool and the Roughen Terrain tool. The order you use them in doesn't really matter all that much I think, but I tend to use the Bulldozer first. With the Bulldozer we can make some random gaps in our grassy fields, so it all appears a bit more unstructured and natural looking. You can also use it to make trails in the grass or make it look used by animals in other ways. If you then feel like you ended up deleting too much, you can use some of your now different looking groups to fill out some of the off looking spots. This helps randomize it all even more. And now we'll try and use the Roughen Terrain tool. This will help make the grass appear more lumped together in some areas and make it more bare in others. You might want to run over the Smooth tool after to make it less extreme in some areas if needed. I think using these two tools will help you break up your grassy fields and give them a more natural and realistic appearance. You can also try to add in some small rocks in the mix. Some would probably prefer mixing these into the group to begin with, and that might also save you some time, but I like to add them after, so it helps to break up the groups even more. If you want a little help with making some group of rocks, then you can try with my stone fence blueprint on the workshop. This is made from a part of a barnyard animal pack blueprint, but I removed all the barnyard pieces from it, leaving only these base game pieces, so you don't need any DLCs for this blueprint. If you turn these 90 degrees and either delete one side or pull them together, you got a good base for a group of rocks. You might do some slight editing to it to make it appear less square. Now duplicate it all till you got a good size to spread around your field. Sadly the Bulldozer can't differentiate between plants and rocks. We only just got this nature tab, so we cannot use it over these groups without also deleting the grass. If you find it necessary to delete some random chunks of your stone groups without touching the grass, then the best thing to do is to open the group and then mark a random part of it to delete. How many rocks you want to use, if you want any at all, I'll say depends on the type of landscape you're going for, but they can be helpful to break up all the grass a bit. In the first example I only used one type of grass. This makes it appear a bit more like a cultivated area or so. If you instead try and mix a few different looking grasses, you'll end up with a wilder appearance. That is what I did in my bison field. It is the same technique again, I just went with two types of buffalo grass and then I mixed in another type of grass as well. Make sure to use most of the type of grass you want to end up dominating the area the most. You can of course also mix in other plants than grasses, but I want this tutorial to focus on big open landscapes. Depending on the biome and types of grass you use, you might also want to consider which terrain paint you use. You might think using grass as a base looks the best, but often I feel like using the dirt or rock paints under these grass pieces looks more believable, especially in drier biomes. You can also try the technique with these two tools with other pieces than grass. If you're working on a forest floor, you could use it for leaves cover before adding in the trees, or if you want to add details to a completely flat area, try to use this technique with decal pieces of a fitting color. To cover up landscapes like this might not be for everyone, since you quickly end up with a lot of pieces. So if you play Planet Zoo on console or just an older PC maybe, this might end up becoming too high of a number of pieces for your system. After I integrated this field in the zoo, I can feel a difference in the performance. So you must find the right balance for yourselves for how heavy you can go with this. But you of course don't have to use these techniques on such large areas. It can work in a small habitat or empty gap of your zoo as well. I hope you could find use of some of these tips I gave you today, so dealing with big open grasslands become less of a struggle going forward. Now I need to get back to finishing up this bison field. There is still work to do around here, but make sure to subscribe to the channel to see how that goes. If you enjoyed this tutorial, you might want to check out some of my other tutorials I've done over the time, and make sure to give this video a like before moving on to the next one. Thank you for stopping by. I hope to see you again soon.